I unhooked all my speakers. Hey, Eggleg, if I open
Hello?
I'm going to give everybody just a minute or two longer to get on here, and then I will turn it over to Katie and Jessica to get started. I did put the link for the RCC, the Relay Conference captioning, in the chat box. So if you'd like captions for this training, go ahead and click that link and it'll pull up a separate internet browser with the captions on it. Okay, I am going to put up a poll for CRC credits. So please go ahead and answer that. And then Katie and Jess, go ahead and take it over.
All right, while everybody's doing that, I'll start sharing.
All right, just a couple more seconds on this poll, so answer if you haven't already. All right, Katie, Jessica, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Shayna. So welcome everybody, happy Monday. Today, Jessica and I are gonna be doing a presentation about collaborating with the school districts. Just as a reminder, the DHS website now has the transition resource tab. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please feel free after the presentation to go take a look at that and see what's all on there. All right, so why is collaboration important? The overall goal for the school and VR is to help the students be better prepared for the adult world, whether they decide to focus on finding employment, go into post-secondary schooling, and or learning independent living and social skills to be as independent as possible. Both teachers and counselors have a lot on their plates, both of which have their own requirements to provide transition services to students with disabilities. With better collaboration, we can work together to fill in the gaps needed by the students so the students can learn more about what's available for them to make an informed choice about what they want to see available once the high school staff is no longer an option for them. Please remember to begin accepting invites to IEP meetings as early as possible if schools are inviting you. We're trying to stress with school districts that VR is much more than just project skills. And technically, we can officially take an application for services as early as age 14, while project skills can start at age 16. The other important thing to remember is that the more the student and family and their family meet with you and hear about the services available, the more likely they will understand how the services could benefit them. Conversations can take place to ensure that their goal is compatible with their interests, skills, and abilities, or we can assist them with researching compatible goals. There are many more services that counselors can provide to a student through the required pre-ETs than just project skills. So the earlier we're involved, the more we can do to assist them.
This is Jess. So now that Katie has kind of introduced the importance of collaboration with schools, I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge that some of the information we're going to be talking about today might seem pretty basic. We're going to start with this one or this slide talking about what an IEP is versus an IPE. And I just want to stress that we're doing this and starting at kind of a basic level because we have so many new staff on our roster, and it's important for even seasoned staff to really remember the basics. So we're just gonna take a step back here and really talk about some of these things. Additionally, this presentation came about basically in response or in addition to a presentation that Katie and I just did a few weeks ago at the TSLP Summer Transition Institute that TSLP puts on specifically for teachers. And I know that many of our staff were involved in that conference or attended some of the sessions for that conference, but wanted to take what we learned in talking with the teachers and the school staff and bring it back to you guys as Voc Rehab to talk about, okay, this is what we talked to them about, and now we'll figure out how we can continue that conversation about collaboration. So coming back to this slide, really breaking down the relationship between the IEP, which is the school's individualized education plan, versus our individualized plan for employment, or the IPE. And the examples on this slide are straight out of a example of a student in the Timberlake School District that I had started working with as a VR counselor, and then he continued his experience with others after I transitioned into my current role. But this particular student he had attended a career tech education class in welding. They have basically a semestral class that they have a traveling trailer around that goes to each of the schools in that area. And he took that class and really got interested in welding. And so the way that we worked together with the school was to get him engaged in project skills so that he could continue his welding experience with a local employer that would allow him to spend some of his school day working and building some of those skills and gaining employment experience. On his IEP with the school, he had goals of increasing competencies in writing and reading. And so as part of Voc Rehab, we worked on helping him write his resume and cover letter development, focusing on some of those written employment skills and how to advocate for ourselves. He had a goal for his IEP to lead his IEP his senior year. And so we talked about different pre-ETS advocacy services that we could provide, including Catch the Wave, or I'm losing my words, Katie, what's that summer one?
Youth Leadership Forum.
Thank you, the Youth Leadership Forum with TSLP. Those are services that we could assist with financially, but also just having conversations with a student about self-advocacy and what it looks like to prepare for that IEP, and talking about what's important to you as a student that the teachers and parents and administrators and other services need to know to support you to be successful. Through his experiences, he had a goal then of attending MTI, Mitchell Tech, for welding after he graduated. And so part of the role with Voc Rehab was to explore some of those training and financial aid options, and talking about what he's going to expect through part of that process and how we can support him. So really looking at that collaboration, and not just how we have the schools have an IEP and we have an IPE, and sometimes they can kind of match, but most of the time we do our own things. That's not what we really want to see. We want to be able to see that we are supporting one another through these two documents.
So as Jessica mentioned, we gave a similar presentation to the SPED teachers at the Summer Institute a few weeks back, during which we asked their feedback on a couple questions, and we wanted to share those results with you. So for the services that were provided by VR that were most helpful to them were Project Skills and Project Search. Those were the two bigger ones. And then weekly meetings and monthly check-ins with the students, answering questions that came from teachers, students, or even their families about services that are available, whether it was VR or others. And then as well as the counseling and guidance that counselors provide to their students. So this was, I really like seeing that the weekly meetings and the monthly check-ins made it on there, and we're gonna be talking about that here in a little bit and give you some more ideas on what you could be doing if you don't currently do that, some ideas on how you can start incorporating that.
So next, one of the other things that we asked teachers after we kind of reflected on like what's going well, what do you like to see with Voc Rehab and your interactions with them, and I was really happy that, like Katie said, Project Skills wasn't the only thing on the list. I think that's something that as an agency we've knowingly kind of battled that reputation for a little while with this idea that all we do is Project Skills. and we as an agency and you as counselors have worked hard in the last couple of years, I think, to remind or educate schools that we are more than that, and we can do more than that, and we should be doing more than that. So as we move on from that one, the next question that we really dove into with the schools was what additional supports, like what, we know what's going well, but what could we do together to increase or better support you in your classroom through voc rehab? And so some of these things came up, well, I guess all of these things came up with the bigger words on this page being more frequent from the schools. We had a pretty good feedback from everybody. There was a nice little discussion in our chat from teachers talking about what they would like to see, and as others were popping in on the last one saying, we get this service, some schools were saying, hey, we would like to see that too. So keeping in mind, especially with that top word presentation, I know that can maybe give some folks the heebie-jeebies in terms of like, that is, public speaking is not my skill set. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. I think Katie and I, we've talked about this, and we both really just want to stress that anything we talk about in this presentation, we don't expect you to do all of these things all of the time. But we wanted to explain that these are ideas that teachers felt would improve and increase collaboration between us and them. So as we're talking about these things, it's really something that you as an individual counselor and supervisor or team should discuss with your teachers individually and figure out what's going to be the best fit or support within that particular relationship. We're not going to sit here and say you have to do presentations to the school district, you have to be there every week and do this and this and this and this, because that's unrealistic and that's unfair, and we know that it's not right to ask that of you. It just doesn't make sense. But if you're interested in hearing more about what you could be doing, or if you're just feeling stuck, these are some things that we would like to talk about. So some of these things on here are, I'll just start with presentation because that's right on top. This is an area where some staff around the state are already doing this once in a while, where they're going into the schools and basically being a guest speaker in a classroom, a transition classroom, or even at a parents' night, at a transition event, and they're just talking about voc rehab services, just like you would at an intake, explaining like, this is what we do, this is who we are, this is how we could work with you and benefit you or your students. This is something that some people really like to do as staff, and some people, like I said earlier, are like, no, thank you. That's not my skill set. I would botch it. So Katie and I have talked about this, and we talked to teachers and let them know that if this is something that the teachers would like from their voc rehab staff, and you as the counselor are just completely uncomfortable with it or don't feel like you can meet that expectation, please pass it on to Katie. Because she's happy to help out with that. She's happy to provide some alternatives if meeting in person isn't a realistic option, providing some alternative resources that could fulfill or support that service that they're requesting. Same with mini group lessons, not necessarily that Katie wants to, to do a bunch of group counseling sessions, but this, I want to stress that the idea of like group lessons is really just sitting down with students and saying, you know, what are your goals? And having a conversation with them. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be just a relaxed thing like you would right there in your office. You can sit with them in the conference room or a classroom, and you can make it what you want out of it. Use your skills and your strengths to have that conversation and really build those relationships. Interviewing. So one of the examples of this is that Timberlake, so let me back up a second. When Katie and I were preparing for our presentation at the TSLP event, we worked with a SPED director out of Timberlake, and talked about like what is going well and what have you seen in the past that's gone well and where can we improve some stuff. And really got some firsthand knowledge to help guide our presentation. And due to COVID circumstances, she wasn't able to present with us at that time, but she was planning to. But one of the examples she gave of this was making the interview practice part of the intake and application process. So this is a school where the voc rehab staff had to travel to get there. And so they just scheduled a whole day of like intake after intake after intake, one after another. And in preparation for that, they sat down with the kids or the students that were going to do their applications, and they said, let's treat this like an interview, like you would be going to a job interview. So let's dress nicely, let's dress professionally. How should we be talking to the voc rehab counselor? And then once they get engaged with the voc rehab counselor and are in services, you can follow up with that conversation to say, you know, how did that go? What was it like to have that kind of interview experience for you? Some of these other things, SSI information came up a couple times from school teachers just wanting some support in explaining Social Security benefits and how they might be impacted by voc rehab or working with project skills or other services. And that's something that as voc rehab we aren't experts at, but we know the experts, and so we can make those connections and referrals. Career exploration, small group activities, employment skills, weekly meetings. Really, they were stressing that relationship between the counselor and the student. So we talked a little bit about like going to IEP meetings, that once a year meeting with the student and all of the staff to talk about their progress and their goals for the next year and their transition plans and all of that. And some of the feedback was like, you know, we love having you at the table for IEP meetings. It's great to get your feedback and your voice, but it makes, like if we had to choose between you coming to that one meeting every year and building a relationship with the student by coming more often, we would choose building a relationship with the student by coming more often, because you're the one that's going to be there for them after they're out of school, and following their journey and making sure that they have the supports in place that they need. So this could be, you know, it doesn't have to be a weekly meeting, but just that direct contact with the students as much as possible, and working with your schools or talking with your schools about the importance of that, and figuring out how that's going to happen, especially with COVID. You know, making use of the technology that we have if we're not able to get in the schools, and talking with them about, you know, this is a goal for us to help support our students, our shared students between us and voc rehab and you as their teachers. So how can we work together to make that happen?
So how do we go about developing that partnership? There's lots of things that we can be doing to work with the school districts. One of them is those scheduling of regular meetings. So like Jessica said, visits shouldn't only be at IEP meetings. There should be more meetings on a regular basis so that your presence becomes the norm at the high school. Some meetings to discuss with your schools are a fall meet and greet. This should be scheduled prior to school starting or right at the beginning of the school year. This meeting would be to catch up, meet new staff that might have been hired over the summer, discuss a referral process, identify opportunities for collaboration, talking about what supports that those schools need and that you can provide them, and so on. A while back, I sent a template email to supervisors who should have passed it along to you about scheduling that fall meet and greet with your different school districts. So if you haven't received it, let me know and I'd be happy to pass it along. Feel free to use that, make any adjustments that you want to personalize it, but just try your best to try to get that meeting scheduled with your schools so that you can start that conversation with them. Another meeting to consider with your teachers is a winter check-in to discuss how things are going, make any needed adjustments and ways to continue collaboration, just kind of touch and base with them. And then towards the end of the school year, consider scheduling like a spring evaluation to continue discussions on what worked, didn't work, maybe discuss the progress of individual student goals and what are the summer plans for each of the students that you're currently working with. You could consider monthly meetings with teachers to discuss specific students' needs and progress being made on their IEP and IPE goals. And one meeting that I would strongly encourage is a monthly meeting date with your students. This would be one-on-one, so you can have more direct connection with your students. You could figure out a day like every third Wednesday from 9 to 11 that you could be scheduled with one of your schools, and it just kind of rotates through all of the students that you're working with, whether they're VR eligible or potentially eligible. There's a variety of things that you could visit with them, and it only has to be 15, 20 minutes. But you could develop an application template. You could work on resumes and cover letters. You could work on interviewing skills, or you could use that time to research employment goals. This all could be done in person or through virtual meetings if schools aren't allowing visitors in right now. And not only does this give the student more, get the student more familiar with who you are, but you're also meeting your 20-day last contact report requirement. And it's a great way to get several students in a short amount of time, and you're still working with them and you're still providing valuable services, even if it is only for 15, 20 minutes at a time, because you're still meeting with them other times and you're getting progress reports on their project skills and different things like that. If anyone is interested in receiving more information or an agenda on like the fall meet and greet, that winter check-in, or that spring evaluation, in that email that Shayna sent with all the handouts for today's presentation, there was a folder called DRS presentations to share. In there, there's a collaboration documents folder. So all of the agenda, there's a referral document in there that you can use and share with the schools so that there's that communication. So feel free to use any of that. And if you need help understanding any of that, email me, give me a call. I'm happy to help.
So this next piece of developing a partnership has to do with the referral process. And I think for those of us that have been working with schools and students for a while, we can understand or easily say, like, sometimes that referral process or the application process with schools gets a little bit messy. Trying to keep track of who has what paperwork in, who has had paperwork sent home for parent signature, who have I talked to, who have I not, and trying to stay on track, not just yourself as the VR counselor, but then also stay on track with the teacher that is working with you to get that stuff in. So Katie and I went to a training, or watched a training earlier this year, basically on skills to help develop some of this partnership stuff. And one of the resources that came out of that was a referral tracking sheet, or a spreadsheet. And so Katie and I, well, Katie, I should say, put that together and kind of modified it a little bit so that it fits us in South Dakota and what that would look like. And that's in that shared folder that Katie has sent out. That information is in there, but just wanting to explain that a little bit in terms of, you know, we as voc rehab counselors, we're dependent on teachers to pass along those referrals so that we can provide the pre-ed services. And without that effective referral process in place, we miss students. They get lost along the way. Teachers don't realize that they could be benefiting from voc rehab. We may have met with them once and sent paperwork home to the parents, and then nothing ever happened with it, and we kind of lose track of it. This is a document that can be used and shared. It can be a working document between you and your teacher with that school, so that you both can kind of see where that student is in the process, whether it be like, this student is someone we want to keep on our radar. They're coming up and we're going to want to get them some information, to this student is in the process of getting set up with project skills and we're missing just their photo ID. So that's all we need to get them in place. To this student is about ready to graduate and what are our next steps. Really keeping track of what step in the process that student is, so that everybody's on the same page and there's clear communication across the board.
So we all learned pretty quickly this past spring that using platforms like Microsoft Teams or Zoom for video calls, and of course the more traditional option of conference calls, does work when face-to-face meetings aren't viable for whatever reason, national pandemics, weather in South Dakota, whatever it may be. So start things off right by having conversations about what options are available to your schools if travel isn't possible. But by using technology, students and families are still gaining access to the information that they need. Obviously, in-person is preferred, but things come up, and maybe this is the second or third time the meeting had to be rescheduled, so it's a last-minute request. So traveling to the school isn't really an option, but maybe they could have you jump on through Zoom or Teams or Google Classroom is what a lot of schools are using. So do some brainstorming ahead of time with your school and figure out what platform that they use, and try to work out the kinks ahead of time so that you can still be available. Also, do your best when being flexible, when teachers are trying to schedule a meeting with multiple team members. If it doesn't work in your schedule, obviously we all understand that, but ask about attending virtually if there's a reason that you're just not going to be able to make travel work, but maybe you could make it to the meeting, but you're just not able to be there. So in person. So have that conversation with your school ahead of time to figure out what's the best way to move forward with that.
I'm going to get into engaging families, but hopping on to what Katie just said, in terms of being flexible and fluid, some of the feedback that we got from teachers in terms of like inviting us to IEPs and other meetings, scheduled meetings, is when they, as the school district, have a difficult time getting families in there to participate in those meetings. They get a lot of last minute cancellations, and sometimes it's like, oh, we actually have everybody here, let's throw a meeting together right now since we have everybody available. And then you have a school teacher, or a voc rehab counselor who's an hour away or across town or 3 hours away in some cases. And we as voc rehab can get pretty easily frustrated if we're getting last minute invitations, and schools can feel, and they admitted to feeling, like it's kind of a waste of everybody's time if we're inviting you and we know that you're not able to be there. So again, having that discussion about, if it means I hop in on a conference call, or I can come in on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call, I would much rather get that invitation and have to say, I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me, than to be completely left out of the loop as voc rehab. And they were really receptive to that. So have that conversation with them individually. I would encourage that. So kind of rolling with that, we all know, as voc rehab and teachers know, that natural supports from families and parents is huge when it comes to the success of our students. But it's not always easy to get those families involved. Sometimes we have helicopter parents that are, just right in at every step of the way. And then you have other parents who are completely off the radar. For example, that student that I talked about earlier, we had met with him a couple times and sent home applications for parent signature and never got them back. And so the day that he turned 18, he said, I want to set up an application or an intake. So they had it scheduled on his birthday so that he could sign his paperwork himself. So we know that engaging families isn't always the easiest, and it's can be difficult, but really diving into that conversation and making sure that at least somebody has some communication or relationship with those families. So if we're having trouble with voc rehab of getting paperwork back or talking to or getting in touch with parents when we need something from them, it's worth reaching out to the school and saying, hey, I'm having trouble reaching so-and-so's family. Do you have an updated phone number? Or do you know if they've moved? Or do you know of anything going on in the family that I should be aware of that might be impacting their ability or willingness to engage with us as voc rehab? Are we maybe needing to take a back step or be put on the back burner because they have more immediate needs right now? Having those conversations and making sure that we're collaborating and working together between voc rehab and the school so that we can all provide the necessary supports and services to that family and to those kids, whether it be direct employment related or more counseling and guidance. You know, we are first and foremost counselors and there to provide that counseling and guidance. And it's important to make sure we're using those skills to be there for students.
And then always remembering that an important part of our job is to provide information and appropriate referrals to agencies and services that could be of assistance to students, families, and teachers. So a good handout to reference is the documents to take to IEP meetings to determine what you would like to have access to when you're attending those IEP meetings or even those monthly meetings with your students. You know, share the flyers, share the handouts during those meetings so that they become more aware of the different agencies that are available to them, as well as the TSLP events available, like Let's Talk About Work, Catch the Wave, and YLF. We want to throw that information to them as much as possible because the more they hear it, the more apt they are to follow through and reach out to them for services. And then on Faces, you'll find a letter to parents and that Jessica had put together when she was a counselor that kind of explains transition services in a little bit more detail. There's also the VR services flyer that explains services, and you can add your contact information on there. And then just recently we added a video about VR transition services on that DHS transition resource tab. So again, if you haven't checked that tab out, make sure that you do that after today's presentation so you become familiar on it. And then that way you can direct students, families, and teachers there if they have questions about the services we have available as well. So don't forget about the transition resource guide that was updated this past April to use when meeting with your students. There's a variety of different online resources that you could use for any of the 5 pre-ETs. And as Jessica mentioned, we're getting a lot of new counselors in the different offices. So we thought it'd be good to quickly just go over the 5 required pre-ETs and some of the activities that are in there. So for career exploration, using the virtual job shadows, South Dakota My Life, WOWI, and many of the others that are found in that transition resource guide booklet. You could do self-discovery activities of likes and dislikes of different tasks and skills needed to perform jobs. Work-based learning experiences, that could be project skills, informational interviews, job shadows, internships, anything that they, to give them that real life work experience. Post-secondary educational opportunities, this would be discussing Project Search and any of the other 18 to 21 transition programs in your area. Encourage their attendance at Catch the Wave events in the spring. You can be exploring vocational institutes or universities with the students and helping them understand the difference between the two. Workplace readiness training, this could be talking to students about employment soft skills. You could utilize the Skills to Pay the Bills curriculum online to talk about a variety of employability classes. encourage their attendance at any of the summer pre-ed summer camps that Voc Rehab pays for. And then again, the TSLP, let's talk about work events. For self-advocacy instruction, that could be encouraging their attendance at YLF, discuss the importance of attending their IEP meetings, as well as being an active participant at the IEP meeting. I know that there's a lot of times that I've gone to meetings and the student just kind of sits there quietly, or they're distracted with their phone, or they're reading a book, so they're not very active in the IEP. So talking to them about the importance of why they need to be more vocal. I mean, this is their meeting. We need to hear their voice and what they want. So making sure that they understand that. Discussing the availability of services available to them so they can make informed decisions about what will be the most assistance to them and to help them accomplish their goals. And then as a reminder, all of these services are the required on the TKS system. So be sure to calculate your time correctly on there. I shared the guidance again as a handout today to remind you of the different activities you can do that you typically do throughout a day that should be recorded on the TKS. So again, we just want to make sure that you're calculating your times correctly so we can get credit for all the great work that you all do for your students. So now we'll go into some specific supports that teachers shared that they would like to see more come from the Voc Rehab offices. So job shadows and informational interviews. Job shadows give students the opportunity to learn more about certain jobs in their own community. So consider assisting them with finding job shadow and informational interview opportunities. This is a service that DLR can also assist with, and they can also provide an incentive to the student for completing the activity. And just again, as a reminder, I included the crosswalk of services between DLR and DRS document for your reference. Now, some students might not be interested in starting a new application with Department of Labor, but they're still interested in doing a job shadow and informational interview. Counselors can assist with this process either themselves, or you can talk to them about working with a private provider, and you can authorize employment services hours to that private provider to find these different opportunities. If you do work with a private provider, be sure to remain part of the process by talking to the students about employers of interest. Help them prepare by coming up with questions that they want to ask, and debrief afterwards to find out what they learned so that you can continually work towards narrowing down that employment goal. When I was a counselor, I worked with this one student. He was an avid hunter, and he was really interested in becoming a taxidermist. He had no idea what all that would involve, but he just assumed that that would be a good job for him. So I contacted a taxidermist in the community that he lived, and one afternoon after school, me and him went over and visited with this taxidermist for about an hour so that he could see firsthand what the gentleman did for tasks. He was able to ask questions like, was this a full-time, year-long job? And the more the questions the student asked the taxidermist, the more he was realizing that this was not what he wanted to pursue, because it was nothing like what he assumed it was going to be like. So afterwards, we kind of debriefed, and he's like, no, I'm not interested. And then we were able to kind of go backwards and do some career assessments to figure out some other possible employment goals so that we could continue researching that to find out what he really did want to pursue.
Another service that school staff had asked for was that mock interview, and the practicing the interview skills for a job. And so this is something that you could do in your monthly meetings with your students. Just talking about, like, what do you think an interview looks like? Playing some games with them. There's lots of opportunities to practice interview questions, get an idea of what that situation should look like, talking about appropriate clothing and appearance and hygiene, figuring out what kind of questions they might be needing to ask as an interviewee or someone who's being interviewed, and getting to practice those interview skills with you as their counselor, who's a safe and comfortable partnership or relationship, and then they can take those skills out into an actual interview setting. So just kind of going through those motions and having those discussions with students, whether it be a one-on-one basis or even in one of those group settings, if you're talking to 2 or 3 students at a time, or even 5 or 8, depending on what you have lined up for that day, providing that additional support so that it's coming from someone else besides their teacher and their parents, providing that backup and reinforcing the skills and lessons that they're hopefully getting in school, or providing the information and resources that they just aren't getting in school because they're focusing on other stuff. I think mock interviews or interview skills is something that we all kind of take for granted until we ourselves are in the position of needing to do an interview, and then we realize how scary it can be. And so being there as a support for those students and those first time or even 6th time interviewers, talking about what is important and what they should avoid is helpful for them. We also have career assessments on here. So one of the things that we hope is being done in the school setting through a career class or counseling is in the school is those career assessments and career exploration. And I remember being in high school when SD My Life was first coming out, and they were like, yeah, we're all gonna do this. And then it was like something we looked at once and then never came back to. And I've had several students as a counselor where I talked to them about like, what career assessments or career exploration have you done? And they have nothing to report because they are more concerned about getting their math homework done or their football game coming up or whatever else is going on in their lives that kind of takes precedence on a day-to-day basis. But the career assessment is an area that we are experts in, and have several resources that we could provide to help them with that career exploration, and then making sure to not just do that with the student, but to share that information with the teachers so that you guys can back each other up and help provide additional support. So if they score really high in an interest area, communicate that with the teachers and their IEP team so they can spend a little bit more time exploring that or taking classes that will help them look into that career opportunity, like the taxidermy. Also, like Katie said, if students are working with Department of Labor or are interested in working with Department of Labor, they can assist with career assessments as well, and there might even be some incentives for the students to do that through that agency. So keep in mind that we can and should be reaching out to our Department of Labor offices and seeing in what ways they can support our students alongside us.
So again, we learned from teachers that one of the services that they'd like to see more of is that group work with VR counselors, kind of helping them with, we're the experts when it comes to what does a person need to find a job? What does a person need to keep a job and maintain that job? We're the experts. So, they want us to share our expertise with their students. So making sure that, if they make contact with you, to ask for you to do some sort of presentation, whether it's on DRS services or some employability soft skills, if that is outside your comfort zone, as we've mentioned, contact me. Don't just tell them no. I'm more than happy to assist you with brainstorming ideas of what we can provide for that school to give the teachers some help to work on that collaboration piece, and then making sure that the students are getting the information that they need to be successful employees down the road. Also today, We're going to be hearing from DLR staff and the presentations that they can offer to school districts. And after them, we're going to have Andrea and Megan with the Department of Education who plan to share some additional presentation materials that counselors can access when talking to students as well. Depending on the school location, my assistance with these types of activities will most likely need to be held via Zoom. So the next time you and your district office are having a staff meeting, something to discuss is who within your office would be willing to assist others with these types of requests. You know, because this is really a team effort. We want to make sure that the students are all getting the same services. So whether it's me assisting or somebody else, because like Jessica mentioned, there are some counselors that love doing this type of stuff. So if they're able to work it into their schedule, maybe they'd be willing to assist you or at least give you some ideas on what they've done. So, you know, talk as a district to figure out what would be the best way to move forward with this. But whether or not, it doesn't really matter who's giving the presentation, whether it's Department of Labor staff or other DRS staff. We want your face that's working with that particular school in front of the students. So if it is a DLR staff that you referred the school to and they're giving the presentation, try to still be a part of that call so you can answer any voc rehab questions. And again, it's just another opportunity for the students to see your face and remember your name. Because the more they see you, the more apt they are to follow through when you send the letters or when you leave a message or a text message with them. They'll remember more who you are the more that they see your face. And as previously mentioned, I've put together a shared folder where there's a variety of presentations and resources available to you. You know, the presentation or group counseling topics could be introducing the students to DRS transition services, employment soft skills, career exploration activities, interview assistance, and so on. Also, please remember all the great ideas that the Aberdeen District Office discussed at the monthly DDN back in December. To be reminded of those ideas, feel free to rewatch that training on the DRS intranet site under recorded webinars. I've also been in communication with some other states, and I'm hopeful they'll be willing to share their workshop topics and PowerPoints that they've developed for their transitioned age students. So I plan to add them to this folder if and when they are received. Also in the shared folder is when counselors are requested to give presentations at like TSLP events. You'll notice that there's folders that have a label of the types of presentations, like there's a Catch the Wave one where there's a Jeopardy template in there, there's a Battleship template in there. Feel free to add your own presentations in this folder that others can use. If you do use any of the presentations, I ask that you save a copy to your desktop so that you can personalize it to whatever, if it's adding your contact information or changing some of the questions, whatever it may be, just make a copy on your own desktop and do that. And again, feel free to share the ones that you've created. We don't want to put the same presentation in there. So if there's already a Jeopardy one and you've got a Jeopardy one that you've changed just a little bit, maybe contact me before you share that in there. We don't want to have 1,000 different presentations that are all pretty similar so that people get overwhelmed when they open it. But just keep that in mind that you can share whatever you want. And again, if your school reaches out to you for something along these lines for services for their students, contact me. I'm happy to help you figure out a way we can be of best assistance to the schools in these types of situations. So now let me just check to see if Allie, Sarah, or Tara with Department of Labor, are you guys on?
I'm Allie, I'm here.
Hi, Allie.
Kira, I'm here as well.
Awesome. Hello, hello. So I'm going to turn things over to Allie, Sarah, and Tara with the Department of Labor so that they can share with you all the different presentations that they can offer for schools.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. I am going to share my screen with you guys. Just in 1 second. Give me. Ooh, Katie, are you the host? Can you allow me to share my screen with the group? It says the host still will not allow it. There we go.
You should be able to now.
Thank you. There we go. Can you guys see it? Awesome.
Yep.
Hey everybody, thanks for asking us to come and join you. My name's Tara Bartikoski and I am a career advisor in Yankton. So Allie and I work mainly with students and in the school districts, and we work directly with them in the schools. So we're really excited here today to tell you a little bit about what we do and what we can offer students. And I'm gonna let Allie introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Allie. Like she said, I'm also a career advisor here in Sioux Falls, working directly with the students. Sarah unfortunately couldn't make it today, so it'll just be Tara and I doing this presentation. So what is Career Launch? It was created to increase student awareness about career opportunities in their community, while also helping meet the demand in South Dakota for a skilled workforce. So our goal is to ensure students graduate with a clear understanding of the opportunities available for them in the job market, the different pathways that are available to them, the pros and cons of each route. And then here are some services that we provide. We can do one-on-one career advising with students, career interest inventories. We do a presentation called Bring Your A Game, which is soft skills to students, and it has 7 A's, like attendance, attitude, appreciation, things like that. And depending on the situation, we can kind of deliver that in different ways. We're looking at a virtual way. We also can do it like 1 A a week, or you could do, like a day full of them, or kind of whatever the school or the class is, whatever best fits for them. So that we can do that. We can do classroom presentations on different things, resume writing, cover letters, mock interviews. We can bring in industry speakers from the community to come talk to different classes. We can host career nights within the school, or places for students to come that would, be good places for them to start for career fairs. We've done parent nights. We can do job shadows, assisting and being a liaison between the school and the business and the students, for things like mock interviews or job shadows or internships. We also help with the National Career Readiness Certificate, and we also have WIOA services, which is the Workforce Initiative and Opportunity Act, that we have available to students that meet those qualifications.
So what Allie talked a lot about, she kind of mentioned the importance of business engagement and us being that connector between businesses and the school. And I feel like that's one of the things that has grown a lot with our positions, because we are directly in the school. We have relationships with school and school personnel, and we are kind of that connector between businesses and the school, as you guys well know, with the work that you guys do, how important that is. So that's been really key in in our role as to getting, our focus has been getting students those work-based learning experiences and getting them well-rounded and getting them the knowledge that they need in order to make those decisions when they graduate and when they go on to either post-secondary or go get a job. We want to make sure that they're fully ready for the workforce or for school, whatever choice that they make. So having that connection between businesses and the school is vital, and it's really needed, and that's kind of one of the things that we focus on, is building those relationships. The other part to what we do is, you guys probably are very familiar with WIOA or Title I funding. That has kind of been a change or a shift in the things that the career advisors are able to do now. So with the WIOA Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act Title I, we are able to allow students more access to funding, more opportunities for employment, education, and support services through the things that we are able to connect them with. And really what this can help with is, like you guys, we can give students individualized case planning, and we can be their case manager, either career advisors ourselves, or we can connect them with employment specialists within their local offices that can help be that liaison for them, or that can help be that case manager to help walk them through some of those steps to be able to be successful down the road and through their careers. The other thing that's really important is the funding that's tied to this. Before, we were limited. Now with our phase 2 that we're going to talk about in a second, career advisors are going to be able to connect students that are in the schools. We're going to meet them where they're at, which is really important. So while they're in school, if they're able to qualify for Title I funding, we're going to be able to meet with them directly in the school and enroll them directly in the school and do all of our case management directly in the school with them, so that we can better equip these students for success, and we can help connect them to those services and the funding that's available for them. So we're really excited about the phase 2 and what's going to happen through that as well. The other thing through funding with Title I is that we can pay for lots of things. We can connect students with incentives to doing things. So if they do some career exploration, or if they write a resume, or if they attend an event with us, or they do, something, they can earn an incentive. They can get paid for their internships if they're in a position where their employer is unable to pay them. We can pay them for job channels, work experiences, on-the-job trainings, things like that we can help directly connect them to funding, which is a big change for us and something that's really vital. So now we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about phase 2, so you guys kind of know how that's going to look and how that'll be different. And I'm going to turn that back over to Allie.
So phase 2, we are going to aim career launch. We're going to aim our efforts more towards sustaining and maximizing our resources by increasing schools and students served by DLR. So we're going to have, like Tara was talking about, our WIOA services going to be more available and accessible to youth across the whole state. Like she said, we're going to try to meet those kids where they're at. So we're kind of going to a regional model where before we were more centralized in the communities of which our offices are, but now we're going to spread out and do more travel and kind of meet those kids in the smaller communities across the whole state. And also having those, if maybe there's an office outside of the career advisors, reach those employment specialists in the offices that are closer to those communities, also meeting those kids and kind of enrolling and getting those kids that can meet, we can help them get them into our services. We are also now, with everything going on and going virtual, we have also transferred a lot of our services into virtual services. So we're able to help reach those kids virtually if maybe they're not back in the classroom yet, or if I know some schools aren't allowing visitors in at this time. So we can certainly meet those kids virtually. However, we want to, like Tara said, meet them where they're at. So whatever is the best and way for that student in that school for us to meet them, that's our goal.
So just to give you, a little background, Career Launch with Career Advisors started as a pilot a few years ago, and that included schools and career advisors in cities like, or schools like Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Brookings, and Yankton. Now we've added some career advisors in Huron and Aberdeen, and this regional model that we've developed, and that is going to be happening with our phase 2, which is going to be starting in January of 2021. It's really important for several reasons, mainly being that we're going to be able to reach more kids, we're going to be able to reach more youth, and be able to partner with more schools and school districts. So it's really good for that relationship building for businesses across the state too, and to help engage more of our workforce, but really to be able to help connect those kids and those students with services that are available to them through the Department of Labor. And with our career advisors having more access or having the ability to connect students with WIOA funding, we can now connect them to some of those financial services available to support them along their career paths, including like tuition and fees down the road. So really important, and we're really excited. We kind of threw our map up here just so that you could see that we were kind of condensed into a few different places, and now our reach is going to be expanded so that we can better meet those needs for our state.
We're so excited that we're expanding and we're going to meet those kids, meet more kids outside of our initial reach. And we've always had kind of people reach out to us in smaller communities saying that we'd love your services. So we're really excited to meet their needs. We can't wait to do that. But as we all are facing unprecedented times with COVID-19, and the Department of Labor is, as you may know, working through extremely high numbers of unemployment claims. We have been reassigned at this point to taking to other priorities for unemployment. So in reviewing our capacity, our career launch services will be slated to January 2021. So come January, we'll be back in the schools helping out with however they need. If you come across a school that maybe we sent out a survey in like May, so which was in the midst of lots of things going on. So I know some schools may have missed the survey that went out, or if you come in contact with people like, oh, we want those services, but we missed the email or we missed the deadline. Like, let them know that they can reach out to Aaron Morlock, which is listed his email on here, and let him know that what they would like, and he'll kind of touch base and figure out what we can provide for them and what that would look like come January for that school. So they didn't miss a deadline by any means if they, for some reason, forgot to do the survey. So.
Anybody have any questions for us about services we offer, we can help students with, or anything you wanted to know?
So I have a quick question. I know you guys do, is it bring your A game classes, and you can go into the school and do that, correct?
Yep.
Is that something that's also on hold right now, just because of all the other priorities that DLR is having to handle at this time?
Yes, I mean, most of our career launch services are kind of postponed, held off. We do have a few of them that have already been pre-scheduled, so we are based on the school's needs. If they want us to come in and do that, we can, but it's kind of based on school's need and our availability and our time. Most of them will be pushed off until we have that virtual platform. But what my understanding is that if schools can kind of pick which one they prefer, so the new virtual platform, the company that created Bring Your A Game that we have rights to, has created this virtual platform, but it'll be more like a module system where students can log in and their teachers can help direct them through some of the lessons, and then we would come in and do activities and review with them. So it might look a little different virtually, but from my understanding that we'll have options to do like in person versus virtual, depending on what the school's needs are.
Okay, thank you. And then Cindy wrote, is there a list of schools that are currently participating?
Our central office does have the list of schools. I don't know offhand, who all signed up, I guess. But yeah, we do have a list compiled of all the schools that did complete the survey and are wishing to have our services.
And then if a school were to contact one of our counselors about giving like an employability soft skills type training, they would then direct the teacher to contact Erin or the local DLR office. I'm thinking Erin, but I just wanted to confirm.
I would say they could contact either. I think they could
Okay.
probably contact their local office person as well, and they can help at least get them in contact with with our program, because we have somebody else in Department of Labor that kind of runs Bring Your A Game and sets that up. But it might be that their local office representative might be the one that could facilitate it or do the Bring Your A Game presentation. So that I would say kind of whatever they're comfortable with, they could reach out to Aaron and he could help connect them or to their local office.
And then do you have the contact information for the career launch person in each of the areas that you could share with us, or is that on the website? Where do we find the contact information for the local folks?
I would say if you're wanting to reach out to one of us, I mean, I'm not sure, Allie, maybe you can kind of chime in on this. I guess we could probably send that information out to you, Katie. You could disperse that to who's in each area. But to better connect you could always use that Aaron's email and just ask, to be connected with one of us in the area, and then he can connect you to. But we could send out probably. I mean, Allie, I think that'd be okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. We can give out the emails of the ones that are in the
by city or region.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And then I'll just pass it along to all the counselors. And that's the questions that were in the chat. Is there any other questions for Tara and Allie?
Do you want us to just email you, Katie?
Yeah, why don't you just
okay.
go ahead and email it to me, and then I'll get it to the rest of them.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate your time today, and we're excited to see how this partnership goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. So now we have Andrea and Megan with Department of Education. They're with the CTE program, and they're going to share some of the resources. They did a presentation also at the Summer Institute that some of you may have watched, and I wanted them to highlight a few of the activities that they discussed there. So I'll turn it over to you, ladies.
Awesome, thank you. Can you see the screen that shows a PowerPoint slide?
Yep.
Great, good deal. It's always good to know that we have things open that we want you to see first. So that's good. Megan and I do have a summer theme today because, we're still in August, right? We got to enjoy summer while we have it. So we're going to go over some career development activities that are grab and go for you to use. The best way to really truly experience or to understand them is to experience them yourself. I did not mean to push that button. I am Andrea Deem. I am the School Counseling and Career Development Specialist at the Department of Education.
Yep, and I am Megan Tatum, and I am Career Development and SD My Life Specialist at the department as well.
Awesome. So we're going to go over 3 different activities today. 2 of them are currently in the OneDrive, and we're going to update and post the other one after this session, but we didn't want to spoil the fun by putting it up first. So we'll go through an activity called Bob-a-lator. Brace yourselves, it's a very fun one. Career pizza. Are you getting hungry yet when you hear that? And then escalator. So we're going to dive into Bob-a-lator. Do you want to take this? I feel like I'm talking a lot, sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
All right, we're going into Bob-a-lator. Bob-a-lator is a wonderful presentation or activity for helping people think about what they value most when it goes into career. So what is most important to them when they're making a career decision? You should have already received a document. It's called a Bob-a-lator decision form. Could anybody let me know if they have not, or Katie, can you nod your head if that went out to them?
Yep, it should have been in the handouts that Shayna sent. I think it was either Thursday or Friday of last week. It was one of the handouts that Shayna sent.
Perfect, thank you. And so you'll be using this as we go through this activity. It makes it more engaging if you play along with it. If not, if you're in the mood just to, shoot the breeze, you can just hang on and just watch. So it's up to you. And Shayna, thanks for including it in the chat box. So you can also find it there. Okay. So there are 7 steps we'll go through. Megan, do you want to take the first one?
Sure. So step 1 is to use that decision sheet that you have, and then there's a list of occupations you can see along the side there. And so step 1, you are just going to rank from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most interesting and 1 being the least interesting, just based on their name, which one is the most interesting to you and which one is the least. So 1 to 10, again, just based on reading their names, what's most interesting and least interesting.
And these are actual occupations that we have disguised. So you don't really know what they are, more than likely based on what their disguised name is. Megan, your flower shows up sometimes. So Katie, you're gonna be our gauge. When you get them ranked, will you just nod your head or just let us know? And that's how we'll know to go to step 2. Unless anybody else wants to turn on their camera, just putting it out there. You're good? Okay, we are moving on. Let's go to step 2. All right, step 2, this will show the career clusters that each of the occupations belong to. And so you're going to go in your decision sheet where it has the column labeled step 2, and you're gonna rank each of the occupations by interest again. 10 is the most interesting, 1 is the least. And this is solely based on the career clusters that you see on this slide.
So one thing to note with this slide as well is some of your students may be familiar with the 16 career clusters, but there are, you can kind of see in the image there are 16 career clusters that are nationally recognized. And so this is some prep for this. You could talk about the 16 clusters and some of the example careers and things that fall under those. So just to be aware that some students might know what they mean and some students might not.
And you could, in hindsight, I would love to have played some summer music while we let you complete the forms. That's another thing you can do if there's silence. Always after each step, I love asking participants if they have any guesses on what any of the occupations might actually be. It actually really helps engage the audience, but also helps them to think more about it. So go ahead and write in the chat box if you have any guesses what maybe some of these could be. And I don't see anything in there yet, so we're gonna go to the next step. Maybe you'll have guesses next time.
All right, step 3 is about the money. So how important is money to you? So again, we're going to use the column 3, or the one that says step 3. I guess it's probably the 4th column on the sheet, but it says number 3, and you will use that to rate from 1 to 10, with 1 being the least and 10 being the most. Which one are you most interested in to least interested in based on how much money you would make per year?
And these values were on SC My Life and also on ONET Online. So that's how we got the data. And Katie put in, she thinks knowledgeologist is a teacher. I don't really remember what it is. Actually, nope, I do. We'll find out soon. We've made variations of this activity before where we've created our own names. So sometimes I forget which one's which.
We've presented this at Scrubs camps before as well, and so we've changed them all to health careers. And we've done it for something else too, but I can't quite remember what it is. But that's something you can definitely take this and create your own, and just fill in the information. We use SD My Life or ONET data to fill in the gaps, and then you just make up your own name for the career.
It's kind of fun. It's fun to be creative with it. While you are answering this, or maybe some of you are already done, do you have any other guesses of what some of these occupations could be? And it's totally okay if you're like maybe 50% confident in it, because we're not going to tell you what it is anyway, whether you're right or wrong. So it's kind of fun to just go out on a limb there. You may also notice that some of your interest levels have changed from step 1 to step 3. And you might notice that some items that weren't quite as important to you, like the career cluster might not have been, maybe now the money is more important to you. We have imagizer, might be an artist or graphic arts. We have a wrencher, could be a mechanic. These are all really good guesses, by the way. Once again, we're not going to tell you what it is.
I'm trying to remember what they are.
Right? Extricator, maybe an engineer or a CEO. Ooh, that's a good guess. I don't remember what that one is, to be honest. Nope, I do. Arbologist, game fish and parks. Ooh, we got really good guesses here. All right, let's go on to the next step. Step number 4, how easy will it be to find a job? So check out the number of job openings there could be in South Dakota in the next year. You're going to think about all the information that has been provided so far, and then you're going to rank your occupations with interest from 1 to 10. 10 is the most interesting to you, 1 is the least, and that will all go in under the column that says step 4. So you're going to see that you have a wide range of job openings per year on this list. One has 1,000, and the least I think is 10 job openings each year. So this is a great way, once again, to see what's more important to you when you're making a decision on some career interests to pursue. I'm dancing to no music because silence is awkward for me. Are there any other guesses on here for any of the occupations? We have some wonderful guesses so far. Now that you know how many job openings there might be, it might help you even narrow it down a little bit further. I haven't heard a guess yet or seen a guess yet for bobolator yet. Halologist, there's a guess that maybe it's a deliver driver. Could be, maybe like UPS. Hopefully they come to my house this week for my Amazon shopping problems that I have. Husher, maybe that's daycare or childcare. Another great guess. Have any of you noticed that your interest levels, when you look at the rankings from column to column, have they changed drastically yet? And Katie, I'm just going to look at you because your camera's on. Have you noticed if any have changed drastically? Yeah, that's usually what we see. I see encodologist as maybe a computer tech or IT support. Bobulators, maybe a counselor. Oh, like you bob your head, maybe?
I was thinking the money one is the one that kind of changed my mind on a few things. How much money I could have made.
Yes, I think that one is a big one for people. Let's go on to the next step.
Step number 5 is how much training or how long you'll be in training or education you might need. So this one, you can study the length of training for each occupation. Think about all the information we've given you so far. And again, rate them from 1 to 10 based on your interests. including this, how long it's going to take to get a job. And then you can put your rankings in column 5.
Sunny had a guess. Sunny, how are you doing? Long time no see. Sunny guessed gastronomist, could be a chef. It's a good guess. I think the training requirements really help unfold a little bit more of a detail about these disguised occupations. Builds a little bit more suspense for you since there are 2 more steps before they're unveiled. Margaret says Bobulator could be a cosmetologist. Could be. What we have, 9 to 24 months of training.
It's kind of fun. Out of all the times we've presented this, we've never presented it virtually. And so it's kind of fun having the guesses in the chat box. That's a new one for us.
Yeah, it's kind of like a different breath of fresh air. Pretty cool. You guys are getting really good commentary from us, by the way.
We don't like silence.
Someday we'll have our own podcast where we just talk about things. All right, we're going to go on to step 6, and I'm just going to warn you, step 6 has 2 slides because there's too much writing to have on one slide. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit, and Katie, you will truly be my gauge on when to advance to the next slide. But this step is really focused on your working conditions. So do you want to work indoors or outdoors? Do you want to work night or weekends? And so forth. And so go ahead and just look at these first 5 occupations, and you're going to rank under the column labeled step 6 your interest in these. So from 1 to 10, 10 is the most interesting to you. And then Katie, when you are ready to go to the next slide, just nod your head, and then we'll go on to the last 5 occupations. You'll see with these 5, these have a lot of indoor working conditions. I think our biologist also has outdoors with it. Some of these are standing. Some work in the evenings. Are you ready? Okay, thank you. Here's the last 6.
The last 5, but good job.
Oh, yeah. We're going to just blame that on Monday, or maybe that I read the number 6. I'm just keeping you all on your toes, you know. I did just have a cup of tea, so I can't blame it on no caffeine either. Just an old-fashioned moment. So as you start working or finish up this column, let us know, did any of your interests really change from the beginning to now that we're under step 6? Like, what would be your one that you rate as the most interesting to you now? If you'd like to put that in the chat box, go ahead. I'm getting nothing on here, so maybe people are still working through it, or else. Okay, the education experience information threw off most of my guesses. I can understand that. I'm feeling better about my guess that knowledgeologist is a teacher. It could be. We'll find out in just a moment. Anybody care to share what their one that they rank as a 10 is for this step? All right, we're gonna go on to step 7. I thought I heard crickets there. Thank you, Katie. Hey, thanks for participating. Knowledgeologist is what she says she has. Okay, so last step, step number 7. What are the names for the occupations? So go ahead and list the ideas you have under the column labeled step 7. So Katie thinks knowledgeologist is a teacher, so she would write teacher in that row or column, whichever you want to talk about it. All right, are we ready for the grand reveal? Drum roll, please. This is it. So whoever said cosmetologist for bodylator, you are correct. Nice job. Gastronomist is a chef or a cook. Extricator is a dentist. Woohoo, Margaret. Yeah, you were right. Arbologist is a forester. Husher is a librarian. Wrencher is a plumber. Naleologist is an elementary teacher. Encodologist is a computer programmer. Imagizer is a photographer. And holologist is a light truck driver. So a lot of you had guessed correctly as we were going, and I was really impressed. That's great. Some of you, these could have been a complete surprise to you. However, the moral of the story ultimately is that looking at your columns that you filled out, think about which steps were the most important to you, or which ones did you think were extremely important when you were deciding on your interest levels. And those might be some values you might have when it comes to deciding on career choices. So does anybody think this is something they could use with students? Yes, thanks for the thumbs up. Katie, you're my temp check person, so thank you. We'll go on to the next one. You want this one, Megan?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is an activity called Career Pizza. And there's a couple different ways you can use it, and we can show you that in a minute. We're gonna do the activity first. So this one, we are going to think of as many careers as we can to go with. For example, this one's pizza, but we'll do the example with apron. Andre and I will talk, name some careers. Any careers that go with the apron being nothing, so no thread, nothing, to that apron being in your home. So Andre, do you have a guess for a career?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with farmer. So someone had to grow the cotton that was used to make the apron.
Yes, I'm gonna go with a fashion designer, somebody who had to design the apron.
I'm gonna go with a graphic designer, someone who had to graphically create the packaging that went with selling the apron.
What about a truck driver who delivered it to your house?
Very cool. Maybe a CNC operator that had to work with the production in the warehouse for the apron.
Perfect. I think that gives them an idea. So we're going to do this as a group with pizza, the pizza here that's on the screen. So you guys can, again, from there being nothing, if there was no pizza on this screen, to you guys having that pizza in your tummies, any career you guys can think of that go along with the pizza on the screen, and you guys can just type careers into the chat box.
Delivery driver, good one. Farmer,
Dairy farmer.
Chef, rancher. These are all great.
Butcher.
Server, yep. I always think of That's a Pizza in Aberdeen. Would be a great place to have that pizza. Oh, now I'm craving that. Dairy farmer, another good one.
What about whoever fertilized the whatever
The crop.
plant is on that, whatever seasoning plant is on that?
I think it's basil. I'm gonna guess.
Sure.
Mill worker,
farmer.
cheese processor, veggie farmer, meat processing plant worker. Wow, lots of good ideas. Delivery driver, grocery store owner, box maker, crop duster, auto body shop for vehicle maintenance. Wow, that's creative. That's great. That's out of the box thinking.
Awesome.
Any others? Papa Murphy.
Papa Murphy.
So maybe a Papa Murphy's employee. Yeah, totally. So you get the idea then with this one. We'll go to the next slide here.
Oven maker.
Ooh.
Yes. So we just wanted to share with you, this was just one way you can do it. You can do it virtually this way. We've done this in person with students as well. And one way we've done it is we've broken the students out into different groups, and then they all get they all get a different kind of pizza in their groups, and we will set a timer, and they have to come up with as many careers, just similar to what we did. So one way you can do is just as many careers as you can. So whoever can get the most can get a prize or anything like that. Or another way we've done it is we've said you have to be the most creative. So you can't have any careers on your list that any careers on your list that somebody else has on their list doesn't count. So that kind of breaks the numbers down a lot smaller too that you're competing with. So if you had delivery driver and the Supreme people had delivery driver, you have to cross that one off. Another way we've done it is Andrea put up that career cluster wheel poster thing. We've divided it into career clusters. So the folks with the Hawaiian pizza need to do careers that are with human services. The Supreme pizza gets health science. The 3-meat gets ag, food, and natural resources. And they can only list careers in those clusters. So we've done it by cluster as well. It's just another way. Or the whole classroom can do a cluster too if you're working on it that way, like health sciences or whatever it might be. So we've done it that way as well. And then we like having different kinds of pizzas because then you can have the conversation, you know, like some people may be like, well, it's not fair. Supreme has so many more careers, and, you know, talk about some of those soft skills as well that come along with the differences between the pizzas. And then another way, like the first way I ever did this activity was we used magazine advertisements. So our teacher actually had torn out pages of a magazine, and we went any career that was related to that advertisement. So it was kind of cool to have a hands-on actual, not just a printout of a pizza, but an actual advertisement that came from a company, and it could be anything in there. It could be the person's shoes, their clothes, the truck that's in the background, whatever. So it just kind of gave us more opportunities as well. But so we just want to give you some ideas. If you guys have any other ideas, we're always open to being able to share other ideas on how this activity can be done as well.
I've read about using a can of soup, so you can give the canned goods to each group, and then based on that good itself, they have to figure out the careers that would go into play with it. So if you are in person working with students, that's a really good tangible item. It doesn't cost very much money either, and you can take them back with you and put them in your pantry, or that might be lunch for you for the day. So kind of a win-win. Okay, anything else on this one? We're ready to move on?
I think we're good.
Okay, this is our last career development activity we're going to go over. This one is called Escalator. I believe there was another handout that went out on Thursday or Friday in your email that's called Escalator. It's a, I think that one was a Word document. Thank you, Shayna. So you can just go in the chat box and you can download it there. Honestly, whether you fill it out or not, it doesn't matter. I just want you to see what it'd be like from the student's perspective. This is a very valuable activity to do if you're helping someone think about planning and being motivated to meet their goals that they have. And just as importantly, how to stay away from not meeting their goals as well. So that's the basis of Escalator. So I'm going to show you the PowerPoint that goes with this. And we have it formatted to go with this PowerPoint template, but I believe we already uploaded the actual PowerPoint in case you want to use this if you use it with students. So what's your possible story? You see on one sheet of your paper, it has a 1, 2, and a 3 by it. There's 3 questions I'm going to ask you, and if you're writing in your notebook, that's fine as well. But by the one that says question number 1 by it, you're going to answer this question. What would you like to become? And so this is really considering what your future self is. What do you want to see yourself become? So you can go ahead and answer it personally for you, or you could answer it from the basis of maybe a student perspective. It does not have to be career related. So maybe you see yourself living in a bigger house or something, and that's totally fine to have as what you see your future self as. But go ahead and just write something by question number 1 of what you would like to become. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. What are you now in relation to what you might become? So what you put in question number 1, think about where you are currently in relation to where you want to be. And this is called your current self. So you'll put this in where it says question number 2. So what are you now in relation to what you might become? Okay, we're gonna go on to the next one. This is your third question on your sheet. What are you afraid of becoming? And so this is called your feared self. So what are you afraid of becoming? We'll put this where it says question number 3. To me, that graphic is like the best one to show like fear. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I don't know if you've had enough time or not. Hopefully you have to write down a few responses or even think of them in your mind. So now you can flip your paper over or go to the second page of it electronically, and you'll see an escalator graphic in a sort of way. Some of your students may have never been on an escalator, so you'll have to explain what an escalator does. It automatically will take you either up or down rather than having to take the stairs or an elevator. So that's what an escalator is in a nutshell. So when you look at this graphic here, if we have an escalator that's automated to go down, but we want to go up to get to this future self, go ahead and think to yourself, or you can type it in the chat box, what would happen if you just stand here like this? Where are you going to land at? You're going to land at the top or the bottom? Thank you, Margaret. Thanks for participating. Yes, you would land at the bottom. So if you do absolutely nothing, you're going to get to the bottom. What if you walk extremely slowly? So you're like kind of trying, but not really trying very hard. Are you gonna make it to the top or are you gonna land at the bottom?
The bottom.
Thank you, and thank you, Katie, and thank you, Margaret. Yes, still at the bottom. And what that's trying to say is that you can't halfway try to meet your goal because you're probably not going to meet it. You're going to have to actually try to get up here to meet that future self, that goal that you have. And so this is actually a graphic organizer of some sort that helps people think about what is it going to take to bring myself where I am right now to get to this future self? What's it going to take to get me to that goal? And just as importantly, what would it take for me to get down to this feared self where I know I don't want to be? What steps would have to happen there? So at least I know what those minefields are that I need to avoid. So we're going to actually do one together using this program called Sketchpad. I'm going to escape the slideshow, and I actually have it already on here. If you haven't used this program before, it's fairly easy. The nice thing is that you can kind of show a diorama for people when you share your screen, and it's not a lot of extra work. So I thought for the true spirit of engagement, I am going to be looking at the chat box, or you can unmute your microphone, but you're going to help us build this escalator for this student. What grade do we want the student to be in? I'm going to take the first one I either hear or see. 9th grade. Okay. So this person is in grade 9. What is this person's goal? What is their future self? What do they want? Any ideas? Think about your typical students. What maybe some of theirs is graduate high school. Great. So we're just going to do that. And what do you think would be their feared self? I did not mean to push that. All right. What do you think would be one of the feared selves with that one? Maybe failing high school, or, okay, failing high school. So that's its feared self. I put that down there. So now we have to think about what are some things as a 9th grader that I could do to help me get up to here where I could graduate high school. Any ideas that we could add in here? Study. What's another one? We're going to put, okay, meet with the art counselor. That's a great one. What would be some other ones that would be really helpful to help me to graduate? Good attendance. That's great.
It says meet with school counselor on credit requirements?
Yeah, we'll put that right here. And now, oh, and discipline, that's another good one. And then now let's start thinking about what would it take to get to that feared self. So what are some things that are going to bring me downhill? Poor choices, yep.
Skip
Skipping
school,
school, yeah, that's a big one.
too many extracurriculars.
Not studying.
Oh yes, sorry, I thought you had that one.
And for the sake of time, and we'll put not seeking help as our last one. But now you see how this could be very powerful for someone, that now they have some concrete ideas of what they need to do to get up to that future self. Like how maybe they could start doing some self-discipline. And what could we do self-discipline with? Maybe going to bed on time, getting up in the morning, eating breakfast before we go to school. And so you can come up with other ideas there. Maybe using an assignment notebook. Studying, maybe there's some study skills that would be helpful, and so on and so forth. And so really we're trying to help give the kid the tools that the student needs, but also build that motivation, because this is truly the student's word. So I'm considering all of you as one student with this. You gave me the words on what it would take to help you be successful. I didn't put them in your mouth. So now you have the ownership of wanting to do it. Does that make sense? We're going to go back into our PowerPoint. And so that is the program we use, sketch.io. There's several versions out there. I think there's one that's even newer than this one. So if you want to use it, go for it. If not, no biggie. So what does it all mean? Well, really what this all means is that it's really important to explore your options. So explore what's out there, what it can take to be successful, but also learning about yourself. So I've learned that Zoom works really well for me, but I am not going to be a person that will function solely on virtual learning. I need to have some human-to-human, face-to-face interaction. So I look forward to that day sometime. So it's good to learn about yourself. Maybe some of your students are learning that an assignment notebook doesn't work for them to be organized, and maybe they learn that there's a different way they can be organized to meet their goal of graduating high school. Develop a plan, and that's what Escalator truly does. It helps you develop a plan to get there in a way that is developed by the student, which I think is extremely important. And obviously, when we're looking at career development and also post-secondary planning, such as any post-secondary institutions, SD My Life is a great resource there. So that's our shameless plug there for the program. This is actually the exact PowerPoint that we use when we present, so it's on there. And we'll show you an example one here. This is from a fictitious student, but the student is in middle school, and this student did not even have a career necessarily as the goal, but the student wants to own a horse someday. And this student's biggest fear would be living essentially in poverty. So not really having the luxuries of life that the student would like, essentially being fed to the sharks. So the student is thinking, what will it take for me to be able to own a horse someday? Well, maybe I need to really focus on career planning with SD My Life. I could look at some careers that involve horses, and maybe there's some that would be really appealing to me, or maybe even some post-secondary institutions. What about visiting with an educator that I really feel comfortable with, such as a school counselor, or maybe voc rehab? And then definitely need to graduate high school. And SDSU just happens to offer the program I want to go into so that I can have a career that does allow me to own a horse. Now, just as important, what's it going to take to stay away from here? Well, if you do get here, you're probably going to be failing some classes, and you probably won't have very much money if you don't graduate high school, because finding a job that will allow you to buy this might be a little bit harder. And so that's just an example for you to see. You could have students do this as a collage type of activity where they find images that speak more to them than writing it out. that's fine too. It's really the whole point of it is for the student to really think about what's it going to take to meet their goals. Anybody think they could use this one? Oh, and Megan did put the sketch link in the chat box as well. So if you ever want to use that program, it's right there. We've used that for Pictionary before for staff meetings. Quite fun. So Megan, do you want to take this slide?
You can. I'm trying to get the bobulator in the OneDrive.
Oh, okay, perfect. I just didn't want to be the one only talking, and so perfect. That works out great. So we want to let you know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a ton of grab-and-go career development activities that we do have housed on SC My Life. You don't have to log in or anything to get to these. You just go to this web link right here. And I'm just going to copy the URL. Let me just copy it right here. Copy link. It's going to be in your chat box. So the nice thing is you go on there and there's stuff for K through 12 and beyond. So take whatever works for you. These were originally geared for school counselors. We had some trainings that were offered for school counselors, and a work group actually came together to create toolkits that had grab and go resources. So some of those are on there like that, and then there's some that were offered by school counselors that took courses for graduate credit, and that was part of their assignment. So that's what that is. There's way more than we just went through here, but check it out when you have time. I gotta get onto this screen. This is our contact information. If you do have any questions down the road, don't hesitate to holler. We're really here to help support in career development and really bettering our informed decisions for students on what they might do after school. So that's it. Are there any questions?
While we wait for questions, I just want to thank you ladies for doing the presentation today. I really enjoyed it at the Summer Institute, so I'm glad you were able to show us the three that I think counselors will really use.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for the kind words. And Megan and I were just chatting right before we got onto this meeting. We're like, oh, we're so excited to get to do these activities. So we really enjoy actually getting to facilitate them, but we hope that you were engaged and that you saw some value to them as well. And Megan, do you have Bobulator up in the OneDrive now? Because if that's already up, then everything should be good to go in those folders.
I'm working on the PowerPoint piece because it was a part of a different presentation. So I will get the PowerPoint up, but the decision sheet and the lesson plan are available.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. And thank you all very much. We really appreciate your attention. So thanks again. We will, is this it? Like, are we good
Nope.
to go?
Yep,
Okay.
you guys are good to go. We've got one more thing to do for counselors, but yeah, you guys are good to go.
All
but
right.
It looks
Well,
like everybody's saying thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind
Yes.
words. We really appreciate it. We hope you have a good rest of your summer.
Yes, you guys as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Take care, all.
All right. So just as a few reminders, in that email that Shayna sent last week with the handouts, there was instructions in that email to access this OneDrive folder that Jessica and I have mentioned, and then now Andrea and Megan have mentioned. So if you misplaced that email or if you need help accessing it, let me know. I believe I included instructions on how to send a shortcut to your desktop so it's easier to access on a regular basis. And there's one more thing that we would like to do is Shayna has set up some breakout rooms, and let me quick. And so what we're going to do, what we've been asked to do for presentations on the monthly DDN is have for some takeaways. So we're going to send you guys to your breakout rooms. And then if you see at the top right up here, the website is menti.com. And then the code is 400804. So if you could go ahead and go to that website now, and then that way you guys are going to talk in small groups. What are 2 or 3 important takeaways that you learned this afternoon? and then discuss it as a group, and then we'll come back and kind of go over the results, and then we'll go from there. So again, the website is menti.com, and then your code for it is 400804. And then as you're in your groups, list 2 or 3 things that you guys want to take away, and then we'll come back in a few minutes and go over the results. Is everybody in breakouts? I don't know why I'm whispering.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I thought of that and I'm like, why am I whispering? It's not like they can hear me in the breakout rooms. I'm an idiot. How long do you have the breakout rooms going, Shayna?
It doesn't really, I can end, I have the option to close them. So
Okay. And then I think it gives them like a 60-second warning, right?
I don't know. This is the
I
first time
think
I've done
that's, oh, okay. I think that's when I've done breakouts, it gives you like says that it's going to close it in like 60 seconds. So.
it. Okay. I can send a message to everybody too, Katie. So let me know when you are.
Yeah,
Ready?
you can go ahead and end it because we're getting some great responses. So if you want to say, have them come back in 60 seconds.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. The button gives it another minute.
Oh, that's fine.
Katie, there's like some gray boxes showing up on the screen. Can you move like your presenter box?
Yep, I need to get it like that. Is that better?
Yes.
I'm I'm wondering though, if there are more responses that aren't showing, because it says 16. So let me go exit.
I wonder if it's 16 responses or if it's 16 people like in there right now.
Well, we'll do this and then I'll do download results after because I don't want to lose.
I think everybody's back now, Katie.
Okay. So thanks everybody for doing that. Some great takeaways. The tools and resources available to work with students on a more frequent basis are great. I like that they can overlap with other agencies or departments to make sure that the student continues to remain engaged. The next one is schools want more contact with VR counselors. The DLR and Department of Ed are good resources. Sometimes starting with very basic, simple tools can be best with high school students, absolutely. Access DLR or Career Launch to provide the A-game presentation, authorized employment services for job shadows, and a reminder to meet with schools at the beginning of the year and mid-year to discuss referrals and how things are going in general. Again, there's those documents in the collaboration on that sharing drive. So yes, feel free to use those. It's important to incorporate items, info from the IEP onto the IPE when working with transition students, absolutely. Use material that involve client activities to keep interest, yes. I appreciated how interactive things were with the students. Wonderful. So thank you all for joining in on that. It was just kind of a fun, I actually saw Megan and Andrea use that in one of their presentations. So I was excited to give that a try and it works great. So another thing that you guys can use with your students if you're doing virtual classrooms. Are there any other questions, comments before? We've only got a couple more minutes before we got to go. So was there any other questions or comments before we disconnect? Otherwise, feel free to call me, email me. I'm happy to help any way I can, especially if schools are contacting you to come up with some of these ideas for their students. If there is a little hesitation, contact me. I'm happy to brainstorm with you guys and figure out what we can do to help these students. So take care and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Thanks, everybody.